The wreckage of the transport ship Stellar Wind hung in space like a broken bird. Its hull split open to reveal the twisted metal bones within. Jackson Torres floated in his maintenance suit, beside the breach, his breath fogging the helmet's visor. As he surveyed the damage, 3 days he'd been working on this salvage job, and the ship's exotic energy core still hummed with dangerous potential. "Just my luck," he muttered, adjusting his tool belt. "Couldn't be a simple plasma leak or fried navigation array. Had to be some alien tech I've never seen before." The Frontier Station's salvage bay was quiet except for the distant hum of life. Support systems. Most of the crew had called it a night cycle ago. But Jackson preferred working alone. Fewer people to witness his unorthodox repair methods. Fewer questions about why he talked to machinery like it could understand him. He'd always had a gift with technology, an intuitive understanding that went beyond training manuals and technical specifications. Ships seemed to speak to him in their own language of vibrations and energy patterns. It was a skill that had kept him employed on the Outer Rim, where proper replacement parts were scarce and creative solutions were the difference. Between life and death in the void, the Stellar Wind had been found drifting in contested space, its distress beacon weak but persistent. The official report listed it as a passenger transport, but Jackson's experienced eye had spotted the modifications immediately. Hidden weapon mounts, reinforced shielding, and most intriguingly, that unusual energy signature emanating from what should have been a standard power core. He pushed deeper into the ship's interior, following the energy readings on his scanner. The corridors were dark, emergency lighting casting eerie red shadows on the walls. Debris floated in the zero gravity, personal belongings that told the story of lives interrupted. A child's toy, a woman's jewelry, a man's reading tablet still, displaying the last page he'd viewed. The energy signature grew stronger as he approached the ship's heart. Whatever was generating it had survived the catastrophic damage that had torn the hull apart. Jackson paused at a sealed bulkhead, his scanner nearly overloading from the power readings beyond. "What the hell were they carrying?" he whispered, running, his gloved fingers over the smooth metal. The surface was warm to the touch, unusual for a ship that had been floating dead in space for who knew how long. He found the manual release and cranked it open, revealing a chamber unlike anything he'd expected. The walls were lined with crystalline formations that pulsed with soft blue light, and in the center, suspended in some kind of stasis field, was a woman. She wasn't human. Her skin had a subtle luminescent quality, pale blue-white like moonlight on snow, and her hair was silver white, floating around her face in the zero gravity. She wore form-fitting clothing that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the walls, and around her neck hung a pendant that blazed within her fire. But what caught Jackson's attention was the obvious distress she was in. Even unconscious, her face was twisted in pain, and the crystal pendant at her throat pulsed irregularly, like a heart struggling to beat. "Damn," he breathed, recognizing the signs of system failure. Whatever was keeping her alive was breaking. His engineer's instincts took over, analyzing the stasis field's power flow and the crystalline interface surrounding her. He could see the problem immediately, a feedback loop in the energy matrix, probably caused by the ship's trauma. The field was slowly killing her instead of preserving her. Jackson pulled out his portable power regulator and began connecting it to what looked like the primary control node. The crystal felt strange under his hands, warm and almost organic, as if it were alive. As soon as he made contact, images flashed through his mind, starships unlike any he'd seen, cities of living crystal, beings of light and energy dancing among the stars. He shook his head, attributing the visions to fatigue and stress. The power flows were stabilizing, but something was still wrong. The woman's breathing was becoming more labored, and the pendant around her neck was now blazing so brightly it hurt to look at directly. "Come on," he muttered, adjusting the field parameters. "Work with me here." The pendant suddenly cracked, a sound like breaking glass that resonated through the crystal chamber. Light poured out of the fracture, not the soft blue glow of the walls, but something fierce and white-hot that made Jackson's bones ache. The woman's eyes snapped open, revealing irises the color of deep ocean water. She looked directly at him, and in that moment, the pendant shattered completely. The explosion of light and energy threw Jackson backward against the chamber wall. But instead of the pain he expected, he felt everything. The woman's fear, her confusion, her desperate gratitude at finding herself alive when she'd expected to die. Her emotions flooded through him like a tide, and he felt his own confusion and concern flowing back to her. They stared at each other, across the chamber, both breathing hard, both feeling the strange new connection that hummed between them like a live wire. "What?" she began, her voice melodic but tinged with an accent he couldn't place. "What have you done?" Jackson tried to answer, but words seemed inadequate. He could feel her presence in his mind, not invasive but definitely there, like a new room had been added to a house he thought he knew completely. And strangest of all, he could sense that she was experiencing the same thing. "I was trying to save you," he said finally, his voice hoarse with shock. The stasis field was failing. She moved with fluid grace despite the zero gravity, pulling herself toward him. As she drew closer, the sensation of connection grew stronger. It wasn't just emotional now. He could feel the rhythm of her heartbeat, the way her breath caught when she looked at the remains of her pendant. "The resonance crystal," she whispered, gathering the glowing fragments in her hands. "It was the last gift from my father before." She stopped, pain that wasn't entirely physical washing through both of them. "Before what?" Jackson asked gently, surprised by how much he wanted to comfort this stranger. Her ocean blue eyes met his, and he saw depths of sorrow and determination that made his heart ache. "Before I was exiled from my homeworld for a crime I didn't commit." The words hung in the space between them, heavy with implications. Jackson felt her truth resonate through their connection. Whatever she was accused of, she was innocent. But he also sensed something else, a danger that followed her like a shadow. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nira," she replied softly. "Nira Velthara of the Crystal Reaches. And you are the one who has bound himself to me, whether by accident or design." "Jackson Torres," he said, then frowned. "Bound? What do you mean bound?" Before she could answer, his communicator crackled to life. "Torres, you out there? We've got incoming ships on long-range sensors. 3 vessels, unknown configuration, heading straight for the salvage bay." Jackson and Nira exchanged glances, both feeling the spike of fear and recognition that passed through. "Their link. They found me," she whispered, her face going pale. "They've finally found me." "Who found you?" Jackson demanded, but he was already moving, gathering his tools and heading for the chamber exit. "Those who would see me dead rather than allow the truth to surface," she replied, following him with surprising speed. "And now that you're connected to me through the resonance, they'll kill you too." As they emerged from the ship into the salvage bay, alarm klaxons began to wail throughout the station. Jackson felt Nira's terror mixing with his own growing alarm, the emotions amplifying each other through their mysterious bond. "Then we'd better make sure they don't catch us," he said grimly, grabbing her hand. The physical contact sent a jolt of shared determination through both of them. "I know these stations better than anyone. Trust me." Looking into his eyes, feeling the strength of his resolve through their connection, Nira realized she already did trust him, completely and without reservation. It should have terrified her, this instant bond with a stranger. Instead, for the first time in years of running and hiding, she felt like she wasn't alone. "Lead the way," she said, squeezing his hand. Together, they ran toward an uncertain future, bound by crystal magic neither of them fully understood, but both somehow knew would change their lives forever. The maintenance tunnels beneath Frontier Station were a maze of pipes, conduits, and forgotten corners that only someone like Jackson would know intimately. He led Nira through the narrow passages, their shared connection making words unnecessary as they both felt the urgency driving them forward. Above them, the station shuddered as docking clamps engaged with violent force. Their pursuers had arrived. "This way," Jackson whispered, pulling Nira toward a service hatch that opened into the station's central hub. Through their bond, he felt her amazement at his knowledge of these hidden pathways, mixed with a growing trust that warmed him despite their dire circumstances. They emerged in the administrative section, where Station Chief Morrow was coordinating evacuation procedures. The weathered woman looked up as they approached, her eyes immediately focusing on Nira with suspicion. Torres, what the hell is going on? Those ships out there are broadcasting some kind of diplomatic immunity claim, but they're armed to the teeth and demanding we turn over a fugitive. Jackson felt Nira's fear spike through their connection. Chief, this is Nira. She's the one they're after, but it's not what it seems. I can speak for myself, Nira said softly, her accented voice carrying a dignity that made Morrow pause. I am Nira Valthara, and I am indeed in exile from the Crystal Reaches, but I am not the criminal they claim me to be. Before Morrow could respond, another figure emerged from the shadows of the corridor. He was tall and ethereal, with the same luminescent skin as Nira but older, his silver hair braided with small crystals that chimed softly as he moved. His robes marked him as some kind of religious figure. Sister, the newcomer said, inclining his head toward Nira, I have been searching for you across 3-star systems. Nira's shock hit Jackson like a physical blow. Brother Kell, but how did you? Why are you here? The monk's ancient eyes took in the scene before settling on the joined hands of Nira and Jackson. His expression became unreadable. The resonance crystal has found its match, he observed. Most interesting, and most dangerous, you know about the crystal? Jackson asked, unconsciously tightening his grip on Nira's hand. I should. Brother Kell replied with a sad smile. I was the one who gave it to Nira's father, along with the prophecy that accompanied it. When crystal calls to crystal across the void, truth shall illuminate the darkest lies. Morrow looked between them all with growing impatience. I don't care about your family reunion. Those ships are demanding I hand over this woman, and they're threatening to level the station if I don't comply. You cannot give me to them, Nira said urgently. They will execute me before I can speak the truth. What truth? Jackson demanded. Feeling her anguish through their bond, Nira closed her eyes, and suddenly Jackson was no longer in the station corridor. Through their connection, he was experiencing her memories as if they were his own. He stood in a vast chamber of living crystal, where waterfalls of liquid light cascaded down walls that sang with harmonic resonance. Nira was there, younger, dressed in ceremonial robes and standing before an altar where dozens of sacred crystals pulsed with inner fire. The heartstone of Valthara. An older man's voice said, Nira's father, it has been in our family for 20 generations. As the eldest daughter, you are its guardian now. The scene shifted. Nira was in a different place, arguing with a figure whose face remained frustratingly blurred in the memory. You ask too much. Cousin, the sacred crystals are not tools for your ambition. Our people are dying, Nira. The old ways must give way to progress. With the power of the Heartstones, we could forge an empire among the stars, and lose our souls in the process. I will not allow it. Another shift. Nira was running through crystal corridors as explosions shattered the harmonic walls behind her. In her arms, she carried a small child, one of many innocents caught in whatever catastrophe was unfolding. She reached a transport ship, pushing the child inside, before turning back toward the destruction. When she returned to the sacred chamber, the altar was empty, every crystal was gone, and in their place lay evidence of her supposed theft. Her personal seal, her ceremonial blade, even a recorded message in her own voice confessing to the crime. The final memory was of her trial, standing before the Crystal Council while accusations rained down upon her. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. Her own cousin, Lord Keth Valthara, spoke against her with tears in his eyes. I cannot believe my beloved cousin would do this, but the evidence speaks for itself. Perhaps exile rather than execution. Jackson gasped as the visions faded, leaving him back in the station corridor, but reeling from the emotional impact of Nira's memories. Her pain, her betrayal, her desperate need to prove her innocence. It all flooded through him with devastating clarity. Your cousin, he said hoarsely. He framed you. Brother Kell nodded grimly. Keth Valthara has always coveted power above all else. When the council chose Nira as the next crystal guardian instead of him, he began planning his revenge. But why now? Morrow asked, her practical mind cutting through the emotional revelations. Why hunt her across the galaxy after all this time? Nira's expression hardened with understanding. Because the resonance crystal has bonded me to someone new, In our culture, such a bond is sacred. It cannot be broken except by death, and, while it exists, Keth cannot claim my inheritance or my position. Jackson felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. So he needs to kill both of us to get what he wants. The ships are hailing us again, one of Morrow's technicians reported. They're demanding immediate surrender of the fugitive, and they're not taking no for an answer. Through the viewports, they could see the 3 vessels, sleek, crystalline ships that seemed to bend light around their hulls. They were beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. There's another way, Brother Kell said quietly. The resonance bond between you grows stronger with each passing moment. If you can reach the sacred archives on Velthara Prime, you can access the truth crystals that recorded the real events of that night. And how exactly do we get there? With half the Zephyrian fleet hunting us? Jackson asked. The monk smiled, producing a small crystal from his robes. I came here in a pilgrimage ship. It is old, but it has special properties. The crystals that power it resonate with pure intention rather than mere desire for speed or power. Nira looked at Jackson, feeling his mixture of fear and determination. Through their bond, I cannot ask you to risk your life for my vindication. You're not asking. Jackson replied firmly. I'm choosing. Whatever this bond between us means, I won't let you face this alone. Their connection pulsed with shared resolve, and for a moment, Brother Kell smiled as if he could see something they couldn't. The prophecy speaks of crystal calling to crystal, he murmured, but perhaps it also speaks of heart calling to heart. Across the darkness between stars, Station Chief Morrow looked out at the approaching ships, then back at the unlikely group before her. I can give you 30 minutes before I have to respond to their demands. After that, you're on your own. As alarms continued to wail throughout the station, Jackson and Nira looked into each other's eyes, feeling the depth of their growing connection. They had been strangers mere hours ago, but now they were bound by something stronger than either. Fully understood, the truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered, and together, they would find it. Brother Kell's pilgrimage ship, Sacred Harmony, was unlike anything Jackson had ever seen. The hull seemed to be grown rather than built, crystalline formations spiraling along its length in patterns that hurt to look at directly. As they lifted off from Frontier Station, he felt the ship respond not to controls but to intention itself. Think of where we need to go, Nira said softly, her hand covering his on the navigation crystal. The ship will find the way. Through their bond, Jackson felt her mix of wonder and homesickness as familiar star patterns appeared on the displays. They were heading toward the crystal reaches, but taking a circuitous route through barely charted space. Will this actually work? He asked, watching the 3 pursuit ships fall behind as Sacred Harmony slipped into a hyperspace corridor. That shouldn't have existed. Sacred vessels follow the ancient paths, Brother Kell explained from his meditation alcove. Paths that exist between intention and reality. Your pursuers must rely on conventional navigation, but their relief was short-lived. As they emerged from hyperspace near a trading outpost to resupply, Jackson felt a sudden spike of danger through his connection with Nira. She gasped, clutching her chest as if in physical pain. They're here, she whispered. Somehow, they're here, on the long-range sensors. A sleek ship decloaked just beyond the asteroid field. Unlike the ceremonial vessels from the station, this one was built for killing, all sharp angles and predatory. Grace, Lord Keth has sent his personal assassin, Nira said, her face pale with recognition. Rickstar of the Silent Blade. I should have known he wouldn't rely on military pursuit alone. The assassin's ship moved with impossible speed, closing the distance between them in heartbeats. Jackson grabbed the navigation crystal, pouring his desperation into it, and Sacred Harmony responded by diving into another hyperspace rift. But Rickstar followed. For days, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse across the outer rim. The assassin's ship was faster, but Brother Kell's vessel could travel paths that existed only in the spaces between stars. Each time they thought they'd lost their pursuer, Jackson would feel that spike of warning through his bond with Nira, and they'd have to run again. It was during their third narrow escape that Jackson first felt the strange burning sensation in his chest. They were hiding in the shadow of a gas giant, systems powered down to minimal levels. When pain lanced through him like liquid fire, Nira caught him as he doubled over, her own face contorting in sympathetic agony. Through their bond, she felt his pain as her own, magnified by the psychic feedback. The crystal energy, Brother Kell said grimly, examining them both with his ancient eyes. Human physiology was never meant to sustain a resonance bond. The power is burning through his neural pathways. Nira's anguish flooded through their connection. There must be something we can do, some way to stabilize it. Perhaps, the monk said slowly, but it would require you to share more than just the bond's energy. You would need to merge your life forces completely. Then we do it, Nira said immediately. The ritual is intimate, Brother Kell warned. It is traditionally performed by bonded pairs who wish to become truly one. There is no returning from such a union. Jackson looked at Nira, feeling her determination and her growing love through their connection. In the days they'd spent running together, their bond had deepened beyond mere psychic link. He'd learned the way she hummed softly when concentrating, how her eyes changed color with her emotions, the fierce loyalty that burned at her core. I'm willing if you are, he said quietly. That night, while sacred harmony drifted in the cosmic dark, Brother Kell performed the ancient ritual. Jackson and Nira sat facing each other in the ship's meditation chamber, hands joined over a small crystal that pulsed with gentle light. Breathe together, the monk instructed. Let your hearts beat as one. Let your souls recognize their perfect match. As the ceremony progressed, Jackson felt the burning pain in his chest ease. But more than that, he felt Nira's presence merge with his own until he couldn't tell where he ended and she began. Her memories became his memories, her fears and hopes, intertwining with his own. In return, she experienced his life, his childhood on a mining colony, his love of fixing broken things, the loneliness that had driven him to the outer rim. She felt his growing love for her, pure and uncomplicated, asking nothing but her happiness in return. The bond is stabilized, Brother Kell announced as the ritual crystal's light faded. But at a cost. You are now truly one being in two bodies. If one of you dies, we both die, Nira finished. I understand. Jackson squeezed her hands, marveling at how right this felt. No regrets, he said, and meant it completely. Their moment of peace was shattered when alarms began wailing. Rickstar had found them again, his ship emerging from hyperspace like a striking serpent. This time, there was nowhere to run. He's jamming our jump drive, Jackson reported, his hands flying over the controls. Through their enhanced bond, he and Nira worked in perfect synchronization, their thoughts flowing seamlessly together. The assassin's ship opened fire, energy bolts searing past their hull. Sacred harmony shuddered under the assault, its crystalline structure beginning to crack. The ship cannot take much more, Brother Kell warned. Suddenly, Nira gasped, her eyes widening with recognition. The asteroid field, she said urgently. Jackson, can you pilot us into the densest section? He understood immediately, their merged consciousness making words unnecessary. The asteroids contained traces of the same crystals that powered their ship. If they could get close enough, they might be able to create a resonance cascade that would disrupt Rickstar's targeting systems. It was a desperate gambit requiring precision flying that would challenge even their enhanced coordination. As they dove into the asteroid field, Jackson felt Nira's absolute trust in his abilities flowing through their bond, strengthening his resolve. Behind them, Rickstar followed, his ship's weapons cutting through asteroids like they were paper. But as they reached the field's heart, Nira placed her hands on the navigation crystal and sang, a haunting melody that made the asteroids themselves begin to resonate. The effect was spectacular. Energy cascades rippled through the field, creating interference patterns that blinded sensors and disrupted weapon systems. In the chaos, sacred harmony slipped away into hyperspace, leaving their pursuer trapped in a maze of singing stone. As they jumped toward safety, Jackson and Nira held each other close, their hearts beating in perfect synchronization. They had faced death together and emerged stronger, but ahead of them lay even greater challenges. The truth was waiting on Valthara Prime, and so was Lord Keth. Velthara Prime hung before them like a jewel against the star field, its surface a web of crystalline cities that caught and refracted the light of its binary suns. From orbit, Jackson could see the sacred spires reaching toward space, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of energy that pulsed in rhythm with some cosmic heartbeat. "It's beautiful," he breathed, feeling Nira's bittersweet emotions through their bond. Home, but also the place where her life had been destroyed. "The crystal archives are in the central spire," she said, pointing toward a tower that seemed to pierce the very clouds. "If we can reach them, the truth crystals will show what really happened that night." Brother Kell guided Sacred Harmony toward a landing platform on the city's outskirts, the ship's crystalline hull resonating with the planetary matrix as they descended. "I can provide sanctuary in the Pilgrim's Quarter," he said, "but once you enter the sacred precincts, you'll be beyond my protection." As they disembarked, Jackson felt the planet's energy washing over him through his bond with Nira. Every crystal in the city was alive, singing in harmonies that made his bones ache with their beauty. The very air seemed to sparkle with potential. "The resonance here is so strong," Nira explained, watching him adjust to the sensory overload. "Our entire civilization is built on the harmony between crystal and consciousness. It's why the theft of the Heartstones was such a profound violation." They made their way through the lower city, Nira keeping her face hidden beneath a pilgrim's hood. The streets were busy with beings of her species, their luminescent skin creating a gentle glow in the evening shadows. Children played with floating crystals that chimed like wind bells, while merchants hawked gems that shifted color with the viewer's mood. "There," Nira said suddenly, pointing toward a familiar figure, emerging from a government building. "Lord Keth." Jackson studied Nira's cousin, through their connection, feeling her complex mix of emotions. Keth Velthara was taller than most of his people, with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. His silver hair was braided with crystals of rank, and his robes spoke of high office. But there was something cold in his bearing, a calculating quality that made Jackson's skin crawl. Beside Keth walked another figure, a woman in the elaborate headdress of the crystal priesthood. Her face was serene, but her eyes held the same calculating coldness as Keth's. "High Priestess Yara," Nira whispered, shock rippling through their bond. "She's supposed to be the keeper of the sacred law. If she's working with Keth, then this goes deeper than just family politics." Jackson finished grimly. They followed the pair at a distance, using their enhanced coordination to move like shadows through the crystalline streets. The nobles led them through increasingly sacred districts, past temples where priests tended eternal flames that burned without fuel, toward the very heart of the city. Finally, Keth and Yara entered a private chamber within the central spire, itself through a crystal window. Jackson and Nira could see them examining what looked like architectural plans, the archives. Nira breathed, recognizing the chamber's layout. "They're planning something." Using her knowledge of the spire's hidden passages, Nira led Jackson through maintenance corridors until they could hear the conversation below. "The human complicates things," Yara was saying, her melodious voice carrying clearly through the crystal walls. "The resonance bond makes her dangerous. She could access memories we thought safely buried." "Then we accelerate our timeline," Keth replied coldly. "The coronation ceremony is tomorrow. Once I'm formally invested as Crystal Guardian, no one will question my authority to reshape our traditions. And if she reaches the truth crystals, she won't. I've arranged for Rickstar to make one final attempt tonight. If that fails, well," Keth's laugh was like breaking glass. "Accidents happen during sacred ceremonies. So tragic when a disgraced exile and her alien pet meet their end." While trying to disrupt the peace, Jackson felt rage burning through their bond, both his own and Nira's fury at her cousin's casual dismissal of their lives. But beneath the anger was something else, determination. "We need to get to the archives now," Nira said urgently, "before they can stop us." They moved swiftly through the spire's crystal corridors, their bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements perfectly. Guards posted at various checkpoints seemed to look right through them, as if their merged consciousness created a blind spot in perception. The archive chamber was vast, its walls lined with truth crystals that stored the accumulated memory of their civilization. Each crystal pulsed with soft light, containing the experiences and testimony of those who had touched them across the centuries. "There," Nira said, pointing to a section marked with her family's seal, the crystals from the night of the theft. As she reached for the memory stones, footsteps echoed in the corridor behind them. Keth entered the chamber, flanked by guards, his face a mask of cold fury. "Hello, dear cousin," he said smoothly. "I wondered when you'd finally come home." Nira straightened, her hands still on the truth crystal. Keth, still playing the grieving relative. "I see, grieving." Keth laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the crystal chamber. "Oh, my dear Nira, I've never been happier. Your exile cleared the way for everything I've worked toward." "The Heartstones," Jackson said, understanding flooding through him via their bond. "You didn't just frame her to take her position. You needed her gone so you could use the sacred crystals for something else." High Priestess Yara glided into the chamber behind Keth, her serene mask finally slipping to reveal the ambition beneath. "The old ways are dying," she said. "Our people cling to traditions that make us weak. With the power of the Heartstones, we could expand beyond this single world, build an empire among the stars." "And all it cost was my honor," Nira said bitterly. "My life, my family, everything I held dear. A small price for progress," Keth replied coldly. "Though I admit, I hadn't counted on you bonding with an alien. That does complicate the succession laws." Jackson felt Nira's shock through their connection. "Succession laws?" Keth's smile was predatory. "Oh yes, dear cousin, you see, according to our most ancient traditions, a crystal guardian who forms a resonance bond must share power with their bonded mate. I couldn't have you returning with a husband to complicate my rule, so you planned to kill us both," Jackson said, his hand moving to the tool belt at his waist. His engineer's tools might not be weapons, but they could serve. "Still planning to." "Actually," Keth replied, raising his hand. The crystals around the chamber began to pulse with angry red light. "Yara has been most helpful in modifying the archive's defensive systems." But as the crystal weapons charged, Nira pressed her palm against the truth crystal behind her. Light exploded through the chamber, and suddenly everyone present was experiencing her memories of that night. Not the false ones Keth had created, but the real truth. The assembled guards saw Keth planting evidence, heard his admission of guilt, felt Nira's desperate attempts to save the innocents caught in his web of lies. When the visions faded, several of the guards had lowered their weapons, confusion and doubt replacing their certainty. "Lies," Yara shrieked, her serene mask completely gone. "Fabrications to save a traitor's life." But the damage was done. The truth crystals couldn't be fooled or corrupted. They showed only what had truly occurred. As words spread through the Spire's communication network, Jackson felt the tide turning in their favor. Keth's face contorted with rage. "If I can't have the throne legitimately," he snarled, "then I'll take it over your corpses." He lunged forward, a crystal blade materializing in his hand, aimed directly at Nira's heart. But Jackson was there first, their bond allowing him to move with superhuman speed. The blade caught him in the shoulder instead, pain exploding through both their consciousness. As they fell together, their combined life force flickering, the truth crystals around them blazed with blinding light. The choice was before them now: live together or die together, but never again apart.